Greetings everyone, my name is Greg. In this video I am going to be talking about how Christians are inherently dishonest. This video came about because of my girlfriend mentioning to me that the landlord that we have at our apartment wanted to talk to me. Reason being was he had asked her if we pray, and she told him that I'm an atheist. And the landlord is a Christian. He's religious. And when she mentioned this to me, I had said to her I was going home, but when I got home and dropped off my sub from Subway and dessert from Dairy Queen and put the one in the fridge, the other in the freezer, don't want anybody to be confused, I decided I wanted to go out and talk to the landlord. Well, I went out there and ran into him, and I started to have a conversation with him, and it became apparent very quickly that the dishonest nature that I deal with constantly. The thing is, the Christians, and to use the term to the defense, they're not realizing that they're being dishonest. The fact that they are, and that they use a double standard, doesn't enter into their head because of one of the reasons that I'll be getting to, the defend their idol or defend their team. It is something that we see in pretty much every type of aspect with our society, so I'll touch on it right away. The defending the team or defending the idol, it doesn't matter if you're having a discussion about religion, or if you're talking politics, or if you're talking sports. It really doesn't matter. It's the same thing all the way around. That being, whatever team or side or person that somebody likes, it can even be a person on YouTube, or anyone really, that somebody wants to defend them. That if you say something against someone, like, to use a good example, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, both of which are blowhards, both of which are repulsive people all around. The thing is, whatever team or whatever person somebody sides with, they will do whatever they can to defend their idol, defend their team. You could even throw in Bernie Sanders back before the bullshit, fake, rigged election type of thing happened, that Hillary Clinton was the Democratic candidate and so forth. Before all of that, the Bernie Sanders supporters were vehemently defending Bernie Sanders, just like the Donald Trump supporters will vehemently defend Donald Trump. Same with the Hillary Clinton supporters. Do they really know jack shit about what these people are about? No, they don't. For the most part. There may be a few that have a bit of an idea, but overall, no. It's more of only, I'm going to defend my team, I'm going to defend my idol, I'm going to defend my side. It is part of the, I guess it's tribalism or team mentality that is all too common in our society. The thing is, this is present with Islam as well as Christianity, Judaism. It doesn't matter what ism or religion you want to try and toss into it. The same thing applies in all cases. In some ways, you can even cite this with, not particularly me, because I'm more interested in what are the issues, what's the subject, so forth, but even with atheism. There are some that will defend atheism, or defend their favorite atheist, regardless of what they have said. That even if they fuck up, that these people will find a way to justify it. The same is true with Christians, with their Jesus or their Bible, even though most of them have never actually sat down and read their fucking Bible. The truth of the matter is, the defending the idol is a common. And they will go to extreme lengths to try and defend their team or defend their side, defend their idol. What it really can also boil down to is what I regard as the way Jesus would act. I want my way. It's also how so many people act. So much of the time, I want my way. And that's all they care about is. And that's what they use Christianity for, as well as the God figure, or even some could even use it for Islam, that they use it to promote whatever is their way, whatever is in line with what they want. It's all self-serving. So if somebody's going to try and come at me, and they have the mentality of, I want my way, and that everything that they're about is all about pushing their agenda, what fits them, instead of the facts, pretty much I'm going to see right through their self-centered, all about me, me, me. Because that's really what a lot of this comes down to. But another common one that I hear, and it was one of the first things that in my discussion with the landlord that came up, because I had said to him, the biggest thing for me is one of two things. Either Jesus was a liar, or I want to see the blind that you've healed, the deaf that you've healed, the lame that you've healed, and the dead that you've raised. Because it is written in John 14:12 that, let me just shift this. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. And then I said, and it even says greater works than these shall you do. And I said to him, but I'm not interested in the greater works. I'm just interested in these base works, doing what this character of Jesus said you would do, if you believe on him. And he tried throwing up, well, what was the context of that? Which was no problem for me, because I'd have this memorized. I pointed out in verse 10, Jesus had said, it's not you that does it, but God. And the reason he did this was the disciples he was making claims from the beginning of John 14. And the disciples had said about, basically, prove it. Where in verse 8, Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Bottom line, the disciples were wanting to see this Father, because he was saying that if you see the Father, you see me type of shit. The thing is, the disciples weren't buying his load of shit. And what it came down to, and I told the landlord this, what Jesus was doing was a type of shell game. He was trying to disguise the fact that he couldn't prove this. He was making statements he couldn't prove. So he was trying to shift the burden of where the evidence would come from when he was talking about this. And that's where he said that it's not him that does it, but God. But it boils to the same. That if somebody says they believe in Jesus, then according to what Jesus says in verse 12, they'll be able to do the works that Jesus did and greater things, because it wouldn't be them doing it anyway. It would be this God. The thing is, he tried throwing what is the context? And the truth of the matter is, I had that down. I knew what that was. It wasn't a matter of, I'm taking this out of context, even though that was what he was initially going to try to go to. Because it is so common that Christians want to go to, you're taking this out of context. What I also had mentioned is straight up, Jesus advocated murder. And I had said to him, Luke 19, verse 27. And you will see this before you. And I quoted this to him. But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. There is absolutely no context that you can give that makes that a good statement. There is absolutely nothing that you can say that he could be talking about that would justify saying, whoever mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither and slay them before me. No matter how much you want to try and justify that. And for anybody that would try to say that was Luke talking, that is bullshit, because anything in red letters, as you see, is supposedly from what Jesus was saying. So if you want to say that something in red was not what Jesus was saying, then how do you define and how do you determine what Jesus had actually said and what he didn't? Because you're wanting to rewrite it and change it to being what fits what you want, which comes back to, I want my way. That's really what it all boils down to. The thing is, Christians will try and justify their behavior and their ideas regarding Jesus. I had also pointed out, since we were on the aspect of things being taken out of context, I had pointed out to him, and bear in mind, I was doing all of this in person, without access to my computer or my e-sword, and everything I quoted, I was doing it from memory. And he didn't quote anything from memory. Because, frankly, I don't think he has anything memorized. Because most Christians barely read their own Bible, let alone have things committed to memory. The thing is, I had pointed out how Christians love to quote Leviticus 17:11. That it's about they try to say it's about the blood making the atonement. And I had said they take that way out of context, because the context is from verse 10 through 14, which I've established in other videos, and I've gone through that. The thing is, anyone that reads Leviticus 10 through 14, what becomes obvious is that this is dealing with, in regards to, the Jewish dietary laws. It has nothing to do with Jesus. I had also pointed out where Christians try and take the word Alma from Isaiah 7, where I had said there's two Hebrew words for virgin that come up. One is a sexual virgin, the other is a young woman. The sexual virgin is spelled Bethulah, whereas a young woman is an Alma. And if you look in Isaiah 7:14, the word virgin that is in that is Alma, which is a young woman. It is not a sexual virgin. I had also pointed out the context in there. If you read it from Isaiah 7:1, it is talking about fears King Ahaz had regarding three kings. And that this God was saying to him about ask a sign, that Isaiah had said about ask a sign of God, and King Ahaz tried acting innocent like he wouldn't ask God of a sign, and then God was fine. If you weren't going to ask for one, I'll give you one. Behold, a young woman will conceive and bear a son, and that son will become king. Jesus was never king. Never. Whereas the son that was born was King Ahaz's son, and he became king. He was King Hezekiah. These things, it all lines up with this historical story, not to mention the story here in Isaiah 7 wasn't even about the Messiah to begin with. There's nothing messianic about that. So what Christians are trying to do is a bit of a shell game regarding the word virgin. They want to play, in a sense, fast and loose with the word virgin. And they want to act like it has only one meaning, when this is simply not the case. The thing is, it wasn't too long ago that we had an issue with cats, stray cats, at our apartment. And the landlord wanted these stray cats gone, and I was not opposed to that. He had tried saying to me about how God will provide for them, and I hadn't said anything then because my girlfriend really doesn't like when I get into discussions on religion with people, because she's a worrier and she doesn't want conflict type of thing. And it is invariably, I can get a response from people that is very hostile. The thing is, this will be getting a little bit sidetracked from where I was going, but it also fits because the landlord and I had perfectly agreed on this. It was one of the few things that we actually did. He had said that the only reason somebody would get offended or upset at something you say is that they feel personally threatened by it. And I agree. And to me, I'm not threatened by his belief, even though I see it as immoral on its very face. I see sociological problems with it, but that's a bit beside the point. On the surface aspect, the aspect of just having a conversation, yeah, there would be no reason to get upset unless you feel personally threatened by something. And then I would raise the question, okay, if I've said something that makes you feel threatened, why? What exactly was it that I said that you feel threatened by? If it's the aspect of Jesus being, that you can't do the miracles Jesus did, and that what you have issue with is what was said in John 14:12, that you want to try and get all defensive over this, then the issue you have really isn't with me. It's with your Bible. It's with what this character of Jesus that you would claim to follow and love so much, what he had said, not what I've said. Because all I am is a messenger. All I am is the one that's telling you what's in your Bible that obviously you've not read. So obviously you don't care about it all that much. If that offends you, truth hurts, doesn't it? All you're doing is validating what I'm saying by getting upset with it. Either with me saying, pony up the evidence, let me see it. You want to say you believe in this Jesus? Okay, fine. He clearly said, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, he shall do also. The only qualifier in that is those that believe. So if you want to say you believe in Jesus, you meet the qualifier. You have to do the works he did, period. There's no way around it. And that's where a person can feel threatened, because I've shackled them. I've shackled them with their own Bible. This is why in my videos I am so big on showing book, chapter, and verse. It is also why when I deal with people, deal with Christians, I am very big on book, chapter, and verse. Let me see it. Prove it. Because a lot of times what they'll do, and it's dishonest to the core, is they'll make up things that aren't even in their Bible to try and validate their position. And then when you say book, chapter, and verse, they want to try and shift it to something else because they don't have it. They don't know it. Or if they do have something that they can try and point to, it's in this aspect of sin as well, that I could also then point out the 10 commandments, or 10 out of the 613 laws given to the Jews. I am no more obligated to obey them than I'm obligated to keep kosher or to obey any Jewish law. It doesn't matter if it's the 10 commandments or the other 603. They don't apply to me. I'm not Jewish. So this aspect of everyone's a sinner. No, not everyone's Jewish. This is kind of common fuck sense. But people don't realize that, because Christians have fed this lie for so long that everyone sins. All have sinned. Everyone's not Jewish, god damn it. It really, that bothers me just by the blatant ignorance of it. To try and act like everyone is having to obey the Jewish laws. No, everyone's not Jewish. So the idea that they have to obey those laws, no, they don't. There's no reason to think that you do. The thing is, the landlord had tried, we had a discussion about a bunch of different things. And I know I got totally sidetracked, but it doesn't matter. I'll either get back to it or it doesn't matter. There was one point I had mentioned about the YouTube videos that I make, and that the last video I did was, the title of it was provocative. That I can do things to intentionally try and, to use the term, incite someone, or what is termed, and I said this to him, about clickbait, baiting somebody to click on a video by the sheer title of it. And I had said the title was, Jesus was an immoral cunt. And I had explained what I mean by cunt, and I had this in the video, is can't understand normal thinking. And I went into explaining this, how cunt, in the aspect of how I was using it, the context was as an acronym. And he had said, and I thought this was rather funny, and I did nail him on it, that he said the only way that would offend me is it's the equivalent of like me saying your mom was a slut. And it would be a fair comparison if you would have an acronym for slut that you could look at and go, this is what each of the letters mean, that equal slut. Then it would be a fair comparison. Otherwise, it's not. And he smirked, because I knew, and he knew I had him. Because if you're going to just, because what his example was just a snarky attempt to try and insult someone. Whereas what I'm doing, even though it is, to use the term clickbait, baiting somebody to click on a video, I will fully grant that that is what it is. The thing is, It's not done just for the sheer purpose of being insulting. I have an actual reason beyond the fact that the word can be and is considered offensive. The thing is, what so many want to try and go to is they won't use the same method. They'll just be straight up trying to be offensive. And in that regard, I look at it for what it is. It's immature, it's childish, it's nothing. It's nothing like what I'm doing. It's not in the same league as what I'm doing. The thing is, I had also pointed out to him that along the lines of salvation and the idea of Jesus paying the price for you, I was hitting at the heart of Christianity. And I had said to him that is not only is it not in line with what's in the Old Testament, it's downright offensive. Because it is no different than a husband saying to his wife, and I said, or about you saying to your wife, here is a gift for the affair I'm going to have. You can't pay for something before you do it. And I could see that he understood what I was getting at, and he smiled. And he acknowledged, because he tried saying, well, it's different with God. That was his plan. I was like, no, it wasn't. It does not fit. And I had mentioned to him Proverbs 49, verse 7. And you will see this before you as well. None of them by any means can redeem his brother, nor give God a ransom for him. This completely debunks and rips out the idea of someone being able to give God a ransom for others. It does not work. Not to mention that's immoral. And I had said to him, in the same way, it would be an insult to your wife to say, here is a gift for the affair I'm going to have. Why would it not be just as much of an insult to a God? To be, this person paid the price for the sins or the bad behavior that you're doing 2,000 years after the fact. How are you not trying to sidestep your own responsibility by saying you think something? And this, he had said we have to talk more in the future, which I have no problem with. And I also recognize this initial conversation in this way. It wasn't anything that, there was nothing he was going to say that would strike me as new. I've heard all this before. So I could go into, in a sense I had an advantage. I could go into it and know, relatively, the type of crap I'm going to hear. And he didn't disappoint. The thing is, he didn't know anything about where I was coming from. So this was an initial, and he said he liked talking about stuff like this because it helps him to understand me better. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Because we talked about the aspect of, like, he believes in an afterlife, and I had said to him, frankly, I do not, because, and I had explained to him that everything he believes and everything he's experienced and knows, it all comes from his experiences in life. And he was like, well, it can come from things you've learned. And I was like, it's still what's going on in here, in your physical brain. That when your physical brain dies, there is no evidence to support the idea that a consciousness can exist without this. And if it can't the idea of an afterlife is meaningless. It doesn't matter. It's all mental fodder. And that is where, for the Christian, what an atheist would point out with that all you have is you live and then you die, it can seem futile. I grant that. I understand the futility that it can come across with life. That basically what's the point of life if all you're going to have is you die and that's it. Because one of the things that is common with Christians is they have, did that in the wrong order. And I found this picture online, the I see you, God, and I added, but I do nothing. Because, like I was saying earlier, we had an issue with cats, and I knew I'd get back to it or it didn't matter. We had an issue with cats, stray cats, around our apartment, and they had been here for a year or so. Started with one stray, and there was a male that, who knows where that one came from, but the one, I called it Sir Kitty until it was pregnant, and my girlfriend was, that can't be a Sir because that's a pregnant cat. And when it gave birth, I was like, all right, that's Mama, that's Miss Kitty or Mammers or whatever goofy name I gave it. Well, it ended up having multiple generations of cats, and we had a whole buttload of these little kittens and cats running around. About a dozen of them, actually, when I started catching them. But he tried giving me this, and I had rolled my eyes at it when he said it here, that God will provide for him. And I had said to him when I was over there, there's no God that's providing for anyone. It's just not happening. And he tried saying, well, nature. And I was, in some ways, yes, but if they don't, even though an animal is equipped in nature to hunt and so forth, if they don't find food, they starve. Nothing magical is going to give them food or take care of them. So to try and equate that to a God is frankly dishonest. Because Christians are not saying that the God they believe in is the deistic type. That it is not giving a fuck about you. Because nature, if you think nature gives a shit about you, go out in nature when you're having a hurricane or even heavy rains and so forth, and see how much nature gives a fuck about you. I will guarantee you, you get in the path of the high winds, anything, with nature, the flood waters, whatever, high wind, you name it, whatever it is, things flying, you'll be dead. Or nature just will beat the shit out of you and have no regard for you. To try and say that that's your God, if that's your God, then your God doesn't give a fuck about you. It doesn't care what you want, because you can ask nature all you want. I want this. I want that. Do this for me. Do that for me. Nature is going to pretty much, it won't say anything, but it's a matter of, you're not getting anything. Nothing will happen. Which is the exact thing with the aspect of a God. You may think that there is this God, but if you're equating it like nature, it doesn't give a rat's ass about you. And it's pompous for you to try and act like it does. And furthermore, if somebody's going to try and pray for me, then what they're really trying to do is take away my free will, because they're going to try and use their magical wishes to bring about and effect a change in me via magic. Well, my attitude with that is, fuck your magic. It doesn't mean anything. And this is where the people like this, they don't want to actually look at what is being said with their ideas, what it really comes down to. But one of the things that I had pointed out with him was and I had mentioned John 3:18, that he that believeth not is condemned already. And I had pointed out, this is thought crime, through and through. This is sheer thought crime. And that Christianity is all about torture. Jesus was big on the aspect of torture. We didn't really go into this too much, so in a sense I'll leave this. I pretty much made this picture combined from a few, as well as quoting John 3:18 that you see before you. The thing is, I've already ripped apart the idea of the only begotten Son of God, so if you want to see that, check out my video on Jesus wasn't a moral cunt, because I go into that. But at the side of this picture is the aspect of God being the allness, the all-powerful, all-knowing, ever-present. With all of that, a God figure would have to be in hell too. Because if it's ever-present, there can't be anywhere that it's not. You simply can't say that a God is omnipresent everywhere at once, and then turn around and say that hell is separation from God. Because that is saying that there can be somehow, with a being that is everywhere, that there's somewhere that it's not. It's inherently dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest whether or not the person recognizes the dishonest nature of it in the first place. If they don't, well, that's on them. They don't recognize the bullshit that they're trying to sell. The thing is, I then came across this picture when I was preparing for this video, and I want to wrap it up with this. Because the one to the side of it, the puppet, wasn't with it initially, obviously. And Dance Puppet wasn't. I added those. The thing is, what you will notice, flesh versus spirit. Right at the top, controlled by on both sides. Let's think about that. Really think about that. Controlled by. If you're controlled by something, you're its puppet. Just be honest with it. But to try and act like the sinful nature, as I mentioned, sinful doesn't apply. I'm not Jewish. Sin does not apply. The next issue with that is seeking what nature desires, treasures on earth. Nature doesn't desire shit. And treasures on earth, that's not about what nature would want. That's about what people would say they want. Selfish desires. And then there is mind is death. I disagree with that. The idea of the mind, it's as much life, but be that as it may, hostile to God. Not all atheists are hostile to God. Let me just jump in here with that and point out something, the aspect of this hostile to God. I'm an anti-theist as well as an atheist. So someone like me would come across as hostile to a God or to the idea of a God. But it doesn't mean that I'm not hostile to what I regard as an imaginary character. What I am hostile to is the ideas that are being presented by the religion. It doesn't matter to me if the religion is Christianity, Islam, I don't give a fuck. If you're going to try and say that you have this God that is going to try and make demands on my life, or that this God is going to try and make demands on anyone, and try and act like your wishes are what this God wants, then you got to be able to prove this God exists. Otherwise, it's not really that I'm hostile to a God, I'm hostile to you. You are not a God. But then we have does not submit. Again, I don't submit to what? An imaginary character? And the cannot please God. Again, I'm not interested in trying to please an imaginary character. It's just not what I'm into. But this controlled by the Spirit, you're still a puppet on a string. It doesn't matter. But the seeking what God desires, treasures in heaven. Hold the fucking phone. To try and act like, let me shrink this down so you guys can see this as well as me. The idea that these Christians are interested in what God desires, but the other thing, let me first attack this, what God desires. Prove a God desires it. Prove to me that it is what a God desires and not what you desire. Especially if you're controlled by something, you're not having a mind of your own. You're not thinking for yourself because you're controlled by something. You're its little puppet. And if that's the type of life you want, that's fine. Be a puppet on a string. Why do you have to try and act like I have to go along with that? The thing is, this idea of treasures in heaven, it all comes down to I want paid off. I want a reward. These Christians want to have that they're going to get a benefit, that they're going to get a payday for what they're going along with. It's no different than pro wrestlers doing their job, but what they're looking for is a payday. They want paid off. They want whatever at the end of the day for it to benefit them. I'm not opposed to use the term selfish desires and the what's in it for me, but let's be honest in it. You're not controlled by anything. We all have because when I go to my job, I'm going to my job because, well, for one, I like the job, but also I want that payday when I get paid. Because it's just that's how I support myself and my girlfriend. The thing is, you're not going to have the idea of treasures in heaven. You're looking for a payday. There is no evidence, no reason to think that you're going to have this place of a heaven. It's a fantasy. It's a pie in the sky idea. Be aware of that. Know that going into it. You're doing mental masturbation. If you want to mentally jerk off, that's fine. Don't expect me to want to watch. But then there is mind is life and peace. The idea that a person can't have peace of mind or peace in general and not believe in a God is obnoxious. Also, by the same token, to act as if somebody that is religious would have a peaceful life. Bullshit. There are tons of Christians whose lives are in chaos because of what they're doing is breeding chaos. That there are some people that it almost seems they are devoted and that they're driven by creating chaos, creating conflict. That they're not happy if they don't have, that they're stirring the pot and making other people uncomfortable. That what they seek is to be disruptive to others. But the next is something I find laughable in relationship with God. How can you be in a relationship with that you never interact with? And if you really seriously think that you are having conversations with a God, an imaginary character in your head, get mental help. You are you're about 2 steps away from being in a mental ward. Sitting in a rubber room, just kind of arms behind you, because you're having an imaginary relationship with an imaginary character. It's all going on in your imagination, in your head. It's just like this Pokemon Go bullshit. I've said to people, one of their imaginary characters, I don't need to go anywhere for them. I don't even need the app. I have an imagination. Yep, I can imagine I caught them all. Nothing I have to do. It's imaginary. If you're going to have imaginary shit, it's meaningless. It's all imaginary. Just imagine that you got it all. No need to go out and do anything stupid. It's the same with this idea of a God. Because frankly, what people, when they say a God, what they're doing is a psychological projection of their own ego. So you're in a relationship with yourself, which is rather narcissistic. And if you want to try and act like this God is somehow different from you, you need to be able to prove that. Maybe have it that I can sit down and talk to your imaginary fucking friend. The thing is, I don't talk to imaginary characters. If I'm going to talk to someone, they have to be able to be right there in front of me. But submits to his commands. I don't submit to commands of imaginary characters. And I'm not sitting back and making up commands in my own head of, well, this is what God would do. Based on what? Based on what's in my own head? Oh, what is it? This is what God would do because it's what you would do. And he seeks to please God. Again, you're not interested in pleasing a God. You're interested in pleasing yourself. Let's be real. Let's not try and act like you're doing something noble. When really, what it comes down to is you're interested in self-gratification. In doing what makes you happy. You don't give a fuck about a God. And I'll make that blanket statement regarding Christians and even Muslims. Because the shit that you're doing, it's not about what a God would want. It's about what you want. If you want to act like women should do this, women should do that, don't try pointing at your stupid book. But rather point out, this is what I want. This is how I feel things should be. At least then you'd be a bit more honest. The rest of us could look at you and go, fuck you. Fuck what you want. Fuck what you think. Doesn't mean a goddamn thing. But these people won't do that because that would be honest. They instead want to hide behind this idea of it's what God wants or it's what Allah wants. They're imaginary characters. If you want to try and say that they're otherwise, pony up the evidence. Prove it. Let me see it. Otherwise, you got nothing. And if you want to mentally jerk off, do so in the privacy of your house where I don't have to watch. Or maybe you can go to your church or mosque or whatever the fuck, and you can mentally masturbate with others like you. But you don't need to have it in public. You don't need to have it in government. And the aspect of, and just to go back to it briefly, the aspect of teams, I'm not interested in teams. I'm not interested in support the team, support the idol. No. It doesn't matter to me if the team or the idol is even atheism. Because there are atheists that I don't like. And there are atheists I don't respect. Mainly the shoving a banana up your ass for whatever fucking reason. I have no respect for that. I regard it as, you do this, why? I don't get it. If that's what you're into, fine. But why make it that people can see this shit? Who the fuck wants to see that? And if they do and they're in your life, fine. But there's so many things. It doesn't matter. If somebody uses the term of an atheist or whatnot, I'm not necessarily going to be on their side or agree with them on all points. They would have to have reasons and evidence to support their position for me to go along with it. But then it's not that I'm going along with it because of them, but rather because of the evidence. Evidence is what I care about, not a person. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Later, people.